Welcome to Life Ascended, where you can discover your divine potential every day. Sponsored by Ascension17.com, the place to go to manifest a higher version of yourself using the 7 aspects of Ascension. Now, here's your host, Cynthia Clark, spiritual mentor, hand analyst expert, healer, author, and speaker.
Hello, spiritual friends, and welcome to today's episode of Life Ascended, where I am going to be sharing with you all the things that I learned in Egypt. So I just recently got back from 2 weeks in Egypt, and this was not a casual kind of a trip. It was a spiritual journey. It was an ascension journey, and it was definitely not easy. There were a lot of periods during the trip that were actually very difficult, and it was definitely worth it. So for me, it was worth it. But I just want you to be inspired by what it means to travel somewhere and actually go through an ascension process. If you're ever wanting to come to Sedona, this is where I host retreats for people, both in a mini retreat as well as a 4-day retreat if you want to dive into something a little bit more substantial. So you don't have to go all the way to Egypt to experience some amazing transformation. And I go to some of these places because I am called to go there and at specific times, right? Especially in the last couple of years, I've been really guided to do some pretty long trips. Last year, I did the British Isles and we finished in Bergen, Norway. I also did a fairly long trip down to Panama, and we also did a trip over in the Mediterranean where we went through the Oracle of Delphi and then Turkey, and then we came back through Italy, France, and we finished in Spain. I'm definitely well versed in world travel, and I've been traveling the world since I was 15, and even before then, because my mother was Canadian. So we used to go up to Canada every year and cross the border, and I learned what it meant to be going into a different country at a very young age. Now, every time I come back to America and to Sedona in particular, I always feel like such a welcome. It's welcoming energy. It's really beautiful energy coming back. So, anyway, sometimes I need a little bit of time to process what happens on these journeys. Egypt was a very different experience versus some of the other trips that I've taken in Europe. I want to just take you through, some of the messages that I got. All right, so first off, we went to the Great Pyramid. Of course, everybody goes there. It's very famous, and we actually did it right away on our trip. We left at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we got to the Great Pyramid a little bit after 3. And we went up to the Queen's Chamber, and then we went up to the King's Chamber. And we were very fortunate because we were the only ones there, just our small group of 12. When we got into the King's Chamber, I had received, prior to the trip, a message from Archangel Uriel of what to say inside the chamber. And so let me read to you what that message was that came in from Uriel. So he wanted me to read this actually in the sarcophagus while playing the 963 hertz. So he says, the King's Chamber is the primary ascension chamber on your planet. It is no accident that you are to go there this year, the threshold of your ascension. Here is an invocation to speak while listening to 963 hertz. So for those of you who don't know that frequency, by the way, it is also called the frequency of the gods. And and it represents opening up to higher dimensional realms. Okay, so by the way, it was interesting because my phone only worked part of the time while I was in the chamber. So this was the invocation. All portals open as I claim my divine birthright of ascension. I invite the one infinite creator to bless my life with grace, faith, love, inspiration, purpose, enlightenment, compassion, abundance, health, truth, and ascension. I welcome and invite any blessings that I am to receive to be brought forth now in all timelines and all dimensions. I call in and welcome the path that is my highest potential to be aligned with the life I am currently co-creating as I let go and release aspects of self that are complete. I claim integration of lessons in the gentlest way possible as I fulfill my purpose here on earth. Thank you, and so it is. Okay, so I recited that in the sarcophagus, and then we got to meditate for an entire hour with the lights out. So normally when I meditate, I do it with lights on, and I usually do it with a notebook, and that's where I channel my messages. I do automatic writing. But in this case, it was pitch black, and I got to lay down almost in the center of the king's chamber, flat on my back. And this was the experience that I had. It was really interesting. First of all, an hour to me felt like maybe 20 minutes. It didn't feel like it was that long. The other thing that I really noticed was it was very, very hot, even at 3 in the morning inside the chamber. And everybody was sweating. I mean, it was kind of stifling, right? But when we got into our meditation, turned the lights off, laid down on the floor, the temperature noticeably dropped for at least for me, and it was much more comfortable. So that was the first thing that I noticed. The second thing I noticed were some images that came in, and I got an image of a bicycle. And this bicycle had wheels that came off, and the bicycle turned into a spacecraft. Okay, so it was like a flying spacecraft. So that was my first image. And to me, that represented like the vehicle, right? Traveling by bicycle versus traveling by spacecraft is quite a bit different. So it, if we think of ourselves in this way, we're moving into how we travel, right? We are going to be traveling very differently as we ascend. So to me, the bicycle wheels coming off represented the training wheels, right? So when you think of like a little kid learning how to ride a bike, they have the little training wheels. And then when they get more comfortable, they take the training wheels off and then they just have two wheels and they ride the bike. So to me, that was the imagery that I was receiving. Okay, another thing that came up was the number 717, which has been my number for many years now since I moved to Sedona. And I got the image of that number corresponding to the number of lives that I've had in Egypt. I don't think it was a literal number, like literally 717, but it represented aspects of ascension, right? So 7 is the 7 aspects of ascension, 17 representing the pathway of ascension. And the king's chamber is that chamber of ascension. So I thought that was really neat. I also received the message that I am Sekhmet. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Sekhmet is the goddess that is the lioness, and she's a real badass. She's tough. You don't want to mess with her, right? She is power. She represents power. But she's also the cow when she is calm and relaxed. And that's interesting because in the Chinese zodiac, I am an ox. So I thought it was interesting that I was connecting to Sekhmet in the king's chamber. So definitely I'm going to do some more research on her. They had statues of her all over the place, so it was really cool. The next thing that happened was my thumb. Okay, so I had my hands down on the floor, and my right thumb started pulsing, and I could feel like a heartbeat pulsing through my right thumb, and it was extremely strong. And everybody was quiet. It was very still, and it was like I was hearing the heartbeat of the pyramid and going into that calm stillness. And the right thumb is also significant because that represents the portal of willpower. So it was coming into my portal of willpower, or my free will finger, and it was showing me the connection between the pyramid and the earth and my free will choice to be there. Right. So I thought that was cool. The next thing that I learned was that the pyramid controls and regulates the governing meridian. Okay, so this is in Chinese acupuncture and Qigong. The governing vessel runs right through the center of your body. And I also learned that other sacred sites regulate other meridians. So I thought that was really interesting. By the way, I have a program called the Diamond Path, and it is a program of ascension. It's a program to really get you moving into your ascended self, your infinite self, and connecting to your soul, right? So a lot of times we perceive things in a very human way. When we're on earth, we judge things, we struggle, and we have our day-to-day lives. But when we take a little time out to connect to that higher self, that higher purpose, that higher reason for why are we really here, that's the diamond path. So the it's interesting to think about the meridians connecting. So I've been practicing Qigong for, I don't know, 26 years now. And so to me, that made a lot of sense. It goes back to the Emerald Tablet, right? The phrase, as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without. So we have a microcosm of ourselves, right? We have our own personal meridian lines. And then there are meridian lines on the earth. We call those ley lines. And by the way, every sacred site is connected to a ley line. These are not random locations for anything. And then we also have a bigger grid system that surrounds planet Earth called the axiatonal grid system. So when we connect all of these together, that is putting us into alignment cosmically, personally, soul level, and also in our everyday life. So I love that the pyramid showed me that. So the next thing that I learned was about the heartbeat. Okay, so the heartbeat can bring coherence. Okay, and I actually was shown that the heartbeat, like the actual human heartbeat, is the original binaural beat. So I find that really fascinating as well because we listen to these binaural beats and they can change the way that you respond to music, and they can change your mood and all sorts of things. But the heartbeat is really the most powerful, right? So again, this brings it right back to inward within ourselves as divine beings of perfection. So I thought that was amazing insight. Okay, the next thing that happened is I received my angel wings. So I felt on my back, I felt something placing these wings on my back. So after I received my angel wings, I was told that my purpose in this lifetime is to help others see their infinite selves and connect to their infinite selves, which I love that because that's what I've been doing for a really long time through hand analysis. The hands really are the doorway to the soul and in your infinite self. So I thought that was really amazing and helping people remember that aspect of who you are. So I also received this message, and they said, beyond the beyond is the self. Beyond the self is knowledge. Beyond knowledge is love. Ascension leads us back to love. Love brings us back to the one. The one is all that is. So that was the message from the pyramid. I also received information about the elements and how they balance with the heartbeat. So I probably will be doing some music tied into my diamond path to assist people in balancing their fire, their water, their air. I definitely got some specific messages about that. So that was my pyramid experience. So after that, we went to the Sphinx, and I actually saw a beautiful Buddha in one of the pictures that I took of the Sphinx. And there was a light coming in, because remember, this is still nighttime. We came out, it was still, I don't know, it was around 5 in the morning. So it was still before dawn. And so the light was just starting to get a little bit brighter, but it was still quite dark when we got out. And we did get to go between the paws of the Sphinx. We had the place all to ourselves. It was really beautiful. But that picture that came through and was a Buddha, I thought was really fun. So that was my experience with the Sphinx. Okay, so after that, we went to a bunch of temples, and the temples were really amazing. So the first temple that we went to was Philae Temple, which is the temple of divine love. Inside Philae Temple, which is dedicated to the goddess Isis, she was the one married to Osiris, and they had their son Horus, the falcon god. So we actually went to all of these different temples, but each temple is typically dedicated to someone. So this was the beautiful goddess Isis, and she's usually shown with her wings spread out, very loving, maternal energy. So we did meditate in there. Again, it was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning. It was really a kind of a test in sleep deprivation for a little while. I was not getting hardly any sleep because we would go early so that we could have the whole place to ourselves, which was really beautiful. Um, I just wasn't quite prepared for the amount of early mornings that we had. So anyway, we were there all by ourselves. We got to meditate with beautiful goddess Isis inside a lovely area of the temple. And what came through in that meditation was that I am the cardinal, which is interesting because I live in Arizona. The cardinal is the state bird of Arizona. We definitely have tons of them here that come into my bird feeder all the time. And so I thought that was very interesting. This is what I looked up about the cardinal: staying present through transformation, being seen more fully, right? It's a bright red bird, you can't ignore it. Heart-led leadership, right? Because the red is connecting to the heart. And the cardinal is also a messenger between worlds. So I thought, wow, that's so perfect again that I am connecting to the cardinal. All right, so that was Philae Temple. Next up, we went to Kom Ombo Temple, which is actually dedicated to two deities: Sobek, representing the crocodile god, and Horus. So this is really about duality and balance. So Sobek was representing like the dark, and Horus is representing the light. So I definitely saw some interesting things here. They have surgical tools carved into the walls. So this was also a place of healing. But to me, it was more like Scorpio type healing of like you're eliminating things that don't serve you anymore, and you're releasing those. What came up for me was that I was integrating the energy of Sekhmet. So the right use of power, and Horus is about all about the vision and seeing that higher vision. And the cardinal is representing that heart, so heart-led leadership. So I thought that was very cool. All right, so the next place that we went to, we got to sail the Nile River. We sailed to Edfu. Spending a little time on the river was lovely. And I did get sick, unfortunately, like almost right away on the yacht that we were on. And I had some sort of stomach bug. Eventually, everybody got sick, but it was not the whole time. I was sick for about 2 days, and then I got better, and then I got sick again. So I would say out of the 14 days, I was sick for probably about 4 of the 14 days. But anyway, the temple of Edfu is dedicated to the god Horus, so the falcon god. And it was definitely a very well preserved temple. And it was all about that perspective of overcoming evil, right? So they depicted that over all the walls is Horus defeating Seth. And it's the battle of good and evil. So that was a beautiful temple. We also went to the Egyptian Grand Museum, and this was before we started sailing the Nile. This was back in Cairo. And we walked into the entryway, and there was a giant statue of Ramses II. And as we were standing by that statue, I felt the energy getting pulled into my hands, just like I did the first time I learned about reconnective healing. It felt as profound as that. And it was, my hands were really, really buzzing. I'm looking around like, does anybody else feel this? It was really amazing. And this statue was enormous. It was like, I don't know, 60 or 70 feet tall. It was a huge statue. And I just felt the raw power of it. And it felt like this was after the Great Pyramid. So I felt like I was integrating something at that time. So anyway, that was really interesting. Also, we went to Dendera, which is dedicated to the Hathors. This was a longer journey. It took us a couple of hours by bus to get there, but it was well worth it. Again, we left very early in the morning so that we could get there and be pretty much by ourselves, which was amazing. So the Hathor temple really is all about divine love. And what came up for me there was a little bit of sadness because there was a lot of destruction inside the temple. And I had had a dream about this. So I felt like I had been there before. And so this was prior to the trip. I dreamed about Dendera. And it was a beautiful temple, huge grounds, gorgeous grounds around it. It had the first zodiac etched in the ceiling, but unfortunately, Napoleon and his army cut it out of the ceiling, and it's now located in the Louvre in Paris. And so they actually put up a replica inside the original location in Dendera, which I thought was a little bit sad. But they had like pecked at all of the humans inside the entire temple. And it was just really sad to see the destruction that they wanted to put on such a beautiful temple, such a sacred place of love and learning. So that made me feel a little bit sad. The next temple we went to was Abydos, and Abydos is dedicated to the god Osiris. This temple was all about resurrection. It was interesting because I was going right before Easter, and I always have really profound things happen to me during Easter for some reason, even though I'm not super religious anymore. I still connect to Christ consciousness and I still connect to Jesus and especially Mary Magdalene. I channel her occasionally, so I definitely connect to her. The message that came up is I am not powerless, but hold all the power of 1,000 suns within me. So that was a beautiful message coming from Osiris and Abydos. And they had beautiful, like natural skylights inside that temple. And so I got to stand under this like beam of light, and that was representing our resurrection. And I could totally feel the energy and the power in that sacred place. They also have little chambers within Abydos that is dedicated to what's called the Ennead. And so there's actually quite a few of those. And so they have one dedicated to Ta, to Amun-Ra, to Ra Horakni, to Osiris, Isis, Horus, and Seti the First. So those were all really fun to go into and just experience the different energy in each one. The next temple that we went to was Karnak, and this is outside of Luxor. Karnak temple was really, really amazing. There was one place in particular inside Karnak that really caught my attention, and it's called the Seven Gates. And it's just this little place with seven gateways all bunched together. And I definitely felt like, wow, this is the seven aspects of ascension. This is showing us the seven aspects of ascension in a gate form. And it was just amazing. I loved Karnak. I felt very expansive there, and it was really beautiful. Huge statues everywhere. And then we went to Luxor Temple, which was equally spectacular. We did this one at night, so right at sunset, and that they have lights over the temple. It was absolutely stunning. And lots of statues of Ramses II. Of course, Ramses II lived to be 92 years old, and he ruled Egypt for 67 years, which is quite a long time. And he was definitely the most famous of all of the pharaohs. When you go into Luxor Temple, you feel the raw power of that place. And it was definitely something. So the next temple that we went to was called Deir el-Bahari, which is dedicated to a female pharaoh, and her name is Hatshepsut. So that temple was where I started getting sick again, which was interesting. And I barely made it through that temple. But what was neat about that temple is it was in the Valley of the Kings. And this female pharaoh actually ruled for 22 years by herself. So she must have been amazingly powerful to do that in a male-dominated society. So her temple was nestled up against these gorgeous cliffs, and I just felt like, wow, what a great choice for a temple, especially for a female pharaoh who wanted to hold her power. So, yeah, I loved that temple. After that, we went to the Valley of the Kings, which was really not good for me. I had a visceral experience when we walked into the Valley of the Kings, and we were going to go in. This is, of course, where King Tut's tomb is, and all the other tombs of the pharaohs. And I just started getting dizzy. I started getting physically ill. And I just felt like, wow, okay, and there were a lot of people in this location. So honestly, I didn't think I was going to be able to handle going into a really tight space with a lot of people with no really way out. So I opted out of that location because I was still having my stomach issues and I was quite sick. So, but that was very interesting because spiritually I had to meditate on that later on. And I did get a message from my higher self. And what happened was we ended up going to the Colossi of Memnon after that. And I actually threw up in public. It was horrible. I haven't done that for a long time, not since I've had vertigo back when I had my divorce. So that was really, I mean, talk about an ascension symptoms, right? Oh my gosh, it was so dramatic. But this is what my higher self said. I channeled this later on. The cleansing in your system today ran through all your lifetimes in Egypt. All that you did or did not do, all that happened to you, and all that you wish would have happened. You chose to release it all today so that you are not bringing it home with you. This is a very ambitious and admirable path, not for a beginner soul. But you are an advanced soul and understands better than most what is happening behind the scenes. Spend the rest of your time in Egypt enjoying yourself and all of who you already are. There is no need to fret that you must do anything else. Be at peace tonight and recognize the perfection of divine perfection that you already are. And then the question came in, what are you wanting to co-create next? Okay, so that message came in at the very end, and it was really a beautiful message. After that, we went back to Cairo, and sure enough, I felt much better once we went back there. So that was my experience in Egypt. So my invitation to you, first of all, I would love to hear if you have ever been to Egypt or if you have ever had any profound experiences in your own life regarding the pathway of ascension and connecting to your infinite self. And I would invite you to join me in Sedona if you're interested in taking this further with your own soul's journey and remembering your infinite self. So I would love to see you. Our next 4-day retreat, by the way, is going to be in June 19 to 22, and it's going to correspond to the summer solstice. So that's maximum yang energy, maximum power energy. We're definitely going to connect to Sekhmet, the Hathors, who I also channel, and Mary Magdalene, and all the higher dimensional wisdom that also comes in from the galactics. So if you're interested in your own spiritual growth and your own journey, I would love to assist you with that. And if you can't make it to Sedona, just check out my Diamond Path program, and we can do it anywhere in the world. We can work on your ascension path through my training course. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you all a beautiful day, and let's ascend together.
Thanks for joining us on Life Ascended, where you can discover your divine potential every day. Please show your support by tuning in, following, sharing your comments, and inviting others to listen. Take it further by visiting ascension17.com for deeper spiritual growth, guidance, programs, and products.